All right, people of faith, let's take another walk. Let's talk on the subject of feelings briefly. How we may get into our feelings, but a feelings is basically uh, flowing off the maybe an emptiness or brokenness from the soul. And feelings is, of course, we could say led off of emotions or so forth, but nonetheless, our soul is love deprived. So we will find ourselves vulnerable for attacks. All of a sudden, we'd like to target for like any kind of spiritual attack, or we would automatically like draw like this obstruction of arguments and disagreements and debates, and we would draw this we'd be like this magnetic force that will pull like situations that is not really technically ours. They belong to somebody else, but we would draw those situations to us, and it would become stockpile inside of our mind. And the purpose of that is to get us to thinking on those things so we can stay buried. Remember, the thief, which is Satan. Satan comes out to kill, steal, and destroy. Jesus come that we might have life and that more abundantly. So the enemy's mission is to make sure that we stay separated from Jesus, because Jesus is the good shepherd, and he's there to lead us back to the fold. Where's the fold? The fold is to be one in oneness with the Father. So anytime that you will have like a all of a sudden an attack of like different, not just thoughts, but we could start there. You have a different variations of thoughts that's like telling you to be angry or upset because things are not going your way. Those are what we would call broken emotions, and that's stemming from being love deprived. Now, up until that point of that first reaction when things start going down or things not going your way, we was feeling good. We would say that we were blessed. But the moment that we start getting attacked, or the things what was going a certain way and it's no longer going that way, and let's say, like, for example, you were working a job, up for let's say 4 days, and so things was going well. You see the income, you could do something with the income, but then, then by the fifth day, they no longer say we need your services anymore. So all of a sudden, it stopped. The financial flow has stopped. So now it becomes like, what we're going to do? That's a thought. Uh, how we're going to pay this? That's a thought. Here comes uh, a broken situation at the house. Something falls apart, or the car break. Something goes wrong with the car. All of a sudden, this happens, or a person tells you that they may need this, but it's your they may need like $50, but it's like your last $50. So it's like you become bombarded by these different. Uh, let's call them for what they are. They are strategic attacks. Why? Because the enemy is a thief. He's coming for the word's sake. Where's the word? The word is that you were blessed. And the blessing stems from the God giving you a lifeline. You're connected with Him, and the enemy's coming to steal that blessing. So you will do what? You would be destroyed, and you will die. You will be killed. But ultimately, in the midst of being destroyed and be killed, you will eventually. His plan is for you to start serving Him, and He will sell you an opportunity to make you think that you're going to get out of that pit of being bombarded by all those different uh, attacks of different, we call it shortcomings or mishaps, But even in that, he comes to collect and make sure that you don't succeed. He is sell you with the idea that, okay, here's an opportunity, and you take that opportunity like is a no brainer. I mean, is a can't miss deal. And soon you get it, it falls apart because his job was to get you away from going to God for help, going to the Most High for help, going to love for the Most High, so he can get you into what? Fear. That's the plan. If you go to the Most High, if you go to Elohim, if you go to Jehovah, let's say it this way: if you go in Jesus to the Most High, not saying in the name of Jesus I come to you, Father. No, you actually are walking upright with Jesus. You're walking hand in hand with Jesus. Not just at that situation where you so called your emotions are being attacked, but you've been with him. You are with him. That you place some Lord in your life and placing him number one as a priority. It means that you're not putting your job, you're not putting money, you're not putting anything above him, which is to say that you're not putting no other thought before him. So even the very thought of what you're going to do because your job is letting you down, or there's notices in the mail, or your car is breaking down, or they threaten to repossess, or they threaten to do all these different things, you still by all means you're saying, no matter what comes across me, Lord, I will serve you. And by making that kind of decree, the enemy's going to come with the opportunity to say, he's going to come with opportunities such as, here's a way to get some money real fast. And the enemy will sell you an idea that that's a blessing of God. So he will want you not to go ask God is that if that is of him or not. He wants you to take the bait. Because the moment that you take the bait, you are in disobedience to God, but you are in obedience to him, which means you have been drafted into his camp to be a slave. Now, you may take that offer and it may be the money that you need to get the car fixed, get the house situation, get the house in order and situated. But at the same time, the very moment that you do, here comes all these unforeseen problems. This is how we start off with this particular video. Here come we're bombarded with all these different things, and we call this love deprived. That's the whole point of it. We're not spending time with the Father. You say like, well, I pray at night, and that's not really spending time with the Father. Like, okay, if you was in a relationship with someone and someone that you really really enjoyed, could you go get by with just like, well, I'll talk to them at night, I'm okay. That's not really love then. You know, it's not that you need them, it's the fact that you really enjoy their company. And that's how it is with Jesus. Like, if you really enjoy his company, you're spending time with him. So just occasional thing is not going to sit well with you because you believe he's more than that to you. So we're talking on the subject of broken emotions and so forth, and how the enemy comes in, and he comes with these variations of ways to steal us away from God, and that ultimately stealing us away from God, that destroys us or destroys the connection between the Father and us, where we will always, if we stay in His good grace and we do what He asks us to do, obey what He tells us to do, and we can hear His voice, we'll stay away from being killed or stay away from being destroyed. And and then if He can't destroy us, He can't do what? Kill us, right? He can't take us out, and not just from the body, but take us out in the spirit realm, which is ultimately what he wants us to do. He wants us to be love deprived. If love is not flowing in the soul of the person, then the soul is going to be left for dead. In other words, I guess it's going to regress and go back to the way that it used to be, which is serving fear. So the average person, and I say this with the utmost respect, the average person actually operate or flow or function through fear more so than they do through faith. And what I mean by that, the person may say, "Well, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not scared." That's not how fear works. Fear is basically it's the opposite voice of God. God will tell you to say, like for example, the voice of God will say, "Stay before me. Don't move. Don't do anything." Like, say for example, I asked God to. I had my grass was like just really, 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 just really disastrous with weeds. It's like they just grew out of nowhere, right? And I asked the Father. I said, Father, I ask for your hand to be up on this grass and to remove all the weeds. So I think God needs some help. So I go get some weed and feed, and I go here and do the grass, right? I put the fertilizer down, and it doesn't nothing happens. I'm watering the grass afterwards, and you can see some weeds are withering. I Now if I was going to do that, I should have left it there, right? No, I didn't though. So what I eventually ended up doing was going and getting some more weed and feed, and poured some more out there because it wasn't moving fast enough. And since it wasn't moving fast enough, now since it wasn't moving fast enough, I reacted out of what? Fear. And so since I react out of fear, now I'm on fear territory. Now fear can come and choke the life that's in me. It can drag me through the mud. It could put its rope around my neck and just drag me. So now I'm looking at the grass now, and all of a sudden the grass is turning burnt even more than it was before. Which means I'm going to have to rake the grass, which means there's going to be more dead grass. I mean, dead spots and so forth, and I'm going to have to fertilize all over again. Or I could have just, like I said, I could have originally not reacted out of fear and just I prayed to God and just wait on His hand. And see, that's in most cases what I mean by how we live in fear versus by faith. And the average person, the person may say that I don't live in fear. That's how we do. We will ask God for something, and then we'll take the initiative because the enemy will come in with a suggestion: do this, because he wants us away from God. If if we can ever see, let's say for example, if I would have waited for God to do the grass, and I like I said, I asked him to do the grass. If I could have waited for him and saw the demonstration of his hand at work, there's nothing nobody could take that away from me. My security in him or my assurance in him would have been like restored. It would be on a different level where I can believe at that point that anytime that I go to God for a need or necessity, He has my best interest. Now, since I didn't do it that way, I reacted out of fear because it wasn't moving fast enough or it wasn't moving according to time, like how I see fit or based upon I want it done now. So since it wasn't done at the time that I wanted to be done, I reacted out of fear. And so now the enemy has the opportunity to torment me with that. So now he can go ahead and take out the grass, kill the grass, and make it even worse than what it was before. And now I'm starting all over again, back to asking God to restore the grass, and this time to keep my hands off of it and don't touch it. So when we looking at ourselves and we're we at that point where we were said like we was on a high where everything is going well, we're blessed and all that good stuff. I'm blessed, God is good. And then we get hit with a persecution or affliction, and that is like the moment of truth to see if which direction we're going to go. Are we going to stay with the voice that was telling us that we were blessed because we got hit with a unforeseen situation that wasn't going to the way that was the the situation is orchestrated to get us to be off track with God. Because if the person is blessed with God and they're like, well, I'm blessed, and they really are blessed, they really walking, they got the favor, things is working well for them. And if they stay that way, they're good. So the persecution or the situation that comes, um, it comes to take them off that focus. Because if they stay focused on the voice of God, they will remain blessed. The 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 ideal is for them to stay in faith no matter what persecution, no matter what no matter what kind of situation that comes with them, whatever they're confronted with, they stay planted. They stay like, I'm not moving. I'm still blessed. Yeah, the grass has turned a different color, and I did wrong. But let's get back, shake the dust off of you. Let's make the confessions to God. Let's get back right standing, Father. I disobeyed you. I went outside your will. I asked you to do the grass, but I took the initiative to do it myself because I believe that you wasn't moving fast enough. If I were to be honest, Father, you wasn't moving fast enough, so I took the initiative to do it on my hand. I can blame the enemy for making the suggestion, but ultimately I the one made the decision. So Father, please forgive me for what I've done, and let's get this right. Let's get back in line, even if we have to start from the beginning of raking the grass all over again and following or starting all over again to following what you asked for me to do. The bottom line is, Father, I want to be back in right standing with you. I want to be following your voice because following your voice is where the blessing is. And I understand now that the enemy has come to take me away from following your will. Now, things may have turned out in front of my, as it appears, it may look like it's not working well for me. Like the decision that I chose to do is backfiring. Is actually working against me. I can easily say, Father, turn this around, and the Father will say, Yeah, I'll turn it around. I have no problem. Only thing I need you to do is listen to my voice. Now, this is where it gets tough because now you got to basically be stripped away from the enemy because you would just listen to the enemy to get in this situation in the first place. Now, the Father going to take you on an assignment to get you away from the enemy, which is going to require you to humble yourself. Now, the person may say, "Well, I'm about to go ahead and humble myself. I'm going to go ahead and feed some people. I'm going to go ahead and do this." That's not what I'm talking about or speaking of. Humility in this case is going to be the very voice of the Father that's going to give you instructions or give you an assignment to do, and it's going to be in a position more likely something that you don't want to do, not something that you feel you can do or that you don't mind doing. It's going to be something that you don't want to do. But the point of it is to exercise the voice of Him. When we when we listened to the enemy and we went a different direction, going back to the grass situation, when I went up against God and I decided to fertilize the grass because I believe God wasn't moving fast enough or God needed help, assistance or something, what I did was I walked away from God's voice and I walked to the enemy's voice. So now the Father going to have to go inside the soul and everything that He didn't build or everything that He didn't plant inside my soul, those thoughts to go ahead and get the fertilizer and do it yourself. He got to tear down all that stuff and that was branching out to produce. One decision to listen to the enemy, what that does is like put a root inside your soul, and then that root is going to stem out branches, and that those branches are going to produce fruit. The fruit is there for you to eat. All right, let's say like that. That one thought. Let's go here. The root. Let's go with the root. Is this one? The one thought is the root, and that one thought was go get the fertilizer and do it yourself. God needs help. That was the one thought. Since I planted that thought, since that thought was planted inside the soul, it now birthed out branches, where those branches represents different ways that I can do it without God. Different ways that I don't even have to ask God anymore. Different ways that I can just be a God of my own. I can make it work myself. Or different ways for other people or other suggestions to come in to do it outside of God. So that's what those branches represents. That comes from that one seed. That one seed is that one thought, and that one thought is that root. Those branches are going to be another opportunities, another suggestions, or other suggestions how to do it without God. And those branches is going to produce fruit. So like if all of a sudden those branches grows like apples. Now that tree is going to produce a thought to say not only just okay, the thought was get the fertilizer and do it yourself. Now here come that plants a tree. I mean, plants a branch that will say, you know, somebody could come with a suggestion like, you can go ahead and get some money, if you do it this way. It's like a scam. You can here come an opportunity where you can lie on to get extra money, whatever. That's a branch to do it outside God's will, right? You did it once by planting the seed. Now here come an opportunity or here come a suggestion to go further in that to tell you how to do it. You won't get caught. That's what it will be all part of that, right? But here comes the fruit from that branch. The fruit from the branch is that you didn't get caught when you planted. I mean, when they gave you the opportunity to get extra money, you didn't get caught. Or the fruit is that the people that was around you did the same thing that it was suggested for you to do, and they didn't get caught. That could be the fruit. So what we would do, we would take what we see of what happened to someone else, and we would eat that fruit. Say, I want that. And then we get to the point where that fruit becomes one with us, start talking to us. That won't happen to you. It's interesting how it works. We plant the thought of disobedience. That seed grows into a branch. which means we will see other people, or it will plant into a branch, I'm sorry, and that branch will produce fruit, an apple or whatever sort. And that fruit would be that you would see other people doing something of dishonesty, but they didn't get caught. So we would take what we see and apply it to us. That's us eating the fruit. When we take and say, "Oh, I can try that and it will work out for me." Like said for example, if somebody was stealing this hypothetically, somebody was stealing, the thought came that you need some money right then and there. So here comes a person that says like, well, um, I had sex for money, and I got a chance to pay my bills and everything else. So that will be a suggestion, and the purpose of that suggestion is for you not to go to God and ask God for help. So if we don't go to God for help, the situation builds up pressure. In other words, the situation has the right to torment us, which means to build up pressure, anxiety, stress, and so forth, cares, concern, worries. It's going to push all that on you. That's what the tormentor. That's what torment is. That's why, so the soul won't have peace. So if the soul doesn't have peace, you are in a ram. You are up under the hand of the enemy. In other words, he have the rights to torment you in your mind. That you would believe that there's no way, or this situation is impossible for God to handle, or it's impossible for it to be handled at the time that you ask God to do it. That decision or that thinking will have you to do what? Be a god in your own eyes, and you go get the fertilizer, and you go ahead and fertilize the grass yourself. So God has to tear down all that, all the fruits, all the branches, all the roots. He got to tear all that down just to be to get to your soil, so His Son can go ahead and plant the seed of love, which will be through the voice of Him. So now you can walk by faith. And walking by faith comes without worry, comes without concern, comes without cares. Why? Because it's a guarantee that God's going to do it. That's why the enemy works so hard to get us away from God. God is a God of His word. If He said He's going to do it, He's going to do it. As long as we're asking according to His will. His will always be in unification, and it will always bring us together as a fold, as a family. It will never have us to do anything out of fear. Fear automatically will be bondage, or it will automatically lead us to be cursed. He will never, God will never give us, or He will never answer a prayer that will put us further inside the curse or further inside of fear. In most cases, for a lot of people, fear is undetected, is unseen. So therefore, a person may say that I'm not afraid, but they don't see what's behind that wall that's in front of them. What they see, there's a plethora of variations of ways to walk in fear outside of that decision. So what God wants to do is break all that down, and He has to restart. Like I said, once we're walking by faith, there is no fear, there's no worry, there's no concern, there's no anxiety, there is no shame, there's no condemnation. There's nothing to strip and rob you or kill, steal, and destroy you away from the will of God, away from the blessing of God. The only thing that the enemy has at that point is try to persuade us away from God. This is what we would call those opportunities, those get missed opportunities. Where that's where we can see other people. All of a sudden, a person come out of blue, say like, yeah, I just got this extra money. I got this extra $40,000. I mean, I just did this. I just said this, whatever, and you know, and then for the most part, it looks as though that person that's telling you that is not in any kind of trouble. They're not getting any backlash. They're not getting any effects of far as like of have to pay that money back or being caught or in some kind of form of penalty. So that will be a representative of Satan to recruit you to go to what? That will persuade you away from going to God. Particularly if your heart is with God, if you gave your life to God and you're trying to walk upright. It's why it's so strategic. It's planned how the enemy does it. When you're going up to the top of God, or when you're rising from the bottom to the top in honesty, or in integrity, or in faith with God, The enemy has strategic attacks or strategic plans with your name on it just to get you away from God. Why? Because you're rising in honesty. You're rising in integrity. You're rising in love. And the enemy can't do anything to kill, steal, or destroy that. If you are with God and you're rising to the top, there's nothing that anybody on this earth can do anything about you. There's nobody can take anything away from you. But if you're rising so called to the top through fear or through the disobedience of God, the enemy can come and snatch the goods away. And actually that's what he's going to do. With that being said, my people of faith, you are the blessed. Oh, let me say this. If you are in that situation, repent. Let's get back to God. Let's get back to make the confessions. It's not going to be one of those things like, Father, forgive me, and then all of a sudden everything goes away. That could be the very case if the heart is sincere without fear. What I mean by that, if you're going to go to God and say, Father, please forgive me for what I've done, and I ask that you help me with the situation, but more importantly, let's clean out my temple. Everything that I've done wrong, let's get rid of all that stuff. That means it's humility time. That means God is going to put a mirror in front of your face and you're going to see some things because the Holy Spirit is going to shine some lights on some areas where you missed it and where the Father could come in and dig up every root. It's time for getting your hands dirty. You're going to humble yourself. And this is where you have to rebuild the foundation of listening to the voice of God. So a person may say, like, well, that seems like a lot of work. See, that's the point why you in the situation that you're in, because you're still listening to the enemy. Until you can listen to God, where anything that God suggests, it's not a lot of work, but actually listen to the voice of God as the blessing, the very damage of the sin is still upon you, or the penalty of the sin is still upon you. And that the enemy has the legal rights to torment you. With that being said, my people of faith, we are the blessed. Let's be the blessing. Let's keep walking.